What's up, y'all? Welcome to day 2. Now, before we jump in, I just want to say something really quickly to y'all. When I do these lectures and these discussions around hip hop, the first session is always a little lengthy, a little arduous, and it's because there's so many different components that we can consider when discussing the origins of hip hop culture that it can be really hard to condense into 10, 15 minutes. So I want to extend that apology to you. Hopefully I didn't bore you half to death. I'm very passionate about it, so I can talk all day about it. But I just wanted to make sure that you walked away from that first session with a good foundation of what the history of the culture is about and some of the different elements, things that have influenced it, etc., etc. Jumping into today's lesson, we're going to be looking at sample culture in hip hop music. To speed up today's class a little bit, instead of reading many of these things to you, I'm just going to point this way and tell you to take a look at what you see to the left of the screen. First thing I'd like to do today is a refresher. What are the 4 elements of hip hop? Y'all should be able to quickly popcorn this out loud. I'll sit here silently and await for y'all to answer that to Professor Cooper. If you were having trouble, hopefully you used the photographs as clues. Aerosol art was the first element, as we discussed in the first session, followed by DJing, followed by breakdancing, and finally emceeing, rapping. And if you remember from last session, we know that 4 elements refers specifically to the 4 creative elements, with knowledge being the 5th culminating element, the thing that brings it together in a very intentional way. All right, so let's dive in. What is a sample? As you take a moment to think about what this could mean with respect to hip hop music, we understand the general definition of sample, I'm sure, but when we think about what it means with respect to hip hop music, I want you to look at the photograph in the picture. This is a classic hip hop producer's tool. It is called the Akai MPC. There are many versions of it that have come out over the past 20 or so decades. I don't know the exact history of the MPC. However, what I do know is that there are many similar instruments to it or pieces of hardware that resemble this. I chose this particular version of the MPC because one of my very first producers used it to make some of the best songs that I've ever made, or at least the beats to some of the best songs that I've ever made in my 20 plus years as a hip hop artist. So hopefully you've had a moment to think about what a sample is. Maybe you've said some things out loud to the rest of your colleagues and peers. Here's the actual definition. So one of the things that I want to do today is talk to you about the 4 different types of samples. As we go through each sample type, as you see here, we have an example of a song that was sampled as well as the song that sampled it. And because I want today to be a little bit more interactive, you'll have an opportunity to actually hear them to be able to see if your ear is able to pick up on the sample. The final thing I'll say before we dive into this is that I genuinely wish that I could be there in person with you, because one of my biggest joys when I teach this is seeing students hear like an original song, perhaps something that they grew up listening to, or a song that they know that's popular, and then hearing something that sampled it, another song that sampled it, and being able to hear the sonic similarities, the differences, the ways in which the producers use the samples to recreate something new from it. So the first type of sample is a breakbeat sample. We talked a little bit in the first session about breakbeats when we were talking about DJ Kool Herc, And while I don't 100% recall if we discussed the technique that he invented, which is why he is widely accepted as the founding father of hip hop music, I'll just take a quick second to discuss it now. So Kool Herc invented a technique called the merry-go-round, and basically what it was taking two turntables, using two of the same record, and you have this break beat, which you see the definition here, and you take, let's say, for example, a song called Funky Drummer by James Brown, which is one of the most popular, most sampled songs, if not the most sampled song ever. And you get to that section in the song where the breakbeat comes on, and with DJ Kool Herc's merry-go-round technique, he'll play that 8 or so second breakbeat on the one record, and then seamlessly transition with the crossfader, which is a piece of equipment we briefly discussed in the first session, moving from where the audience is hearing the sound on, say, the left turntable over to the right. Now on the right-hand side, he's already got the beginning of that same breakbeat queued up on that other identical record for the song Funky Drummer. 8 seconds over here. Crossfader, 8 seconds over here. Crossfader, 8 seconds over here, because while playing it over here, he's already rewound on this side to get it queued back up to the beginning. 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. And this now turns into 4 or 5 minutes because DJ Kool Herc recognized as a very sharp sense of what was happening in these parties as he was DJing, that the folks danced the most when they heard those breakbeat sections. Speaking of James Brown's Funky Drummer, how about we take a listen to that song, followed by one of the many songs that has sampled Funky Drummer. See if you can hear the breakbeat in it.
In the shade, I walk the floor. I wanna walk the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, get it. Ain't it funky? Ain't it funky? Ain't it funky? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yo, what's up, Blast Master KRS-One? This jam is kicking. Word. Yo, what up, D Nice?
Yo, what's up, Scott LaRock?
Yo, man, we chilling this funky fresh jam. I want to tell you a little something about us. We're the Boogie Down Production crew. And due to the fact that no one outside there knew what time it was, we have to tell you a little story about where we come from. South Bronx, the South Bronx. South Bronx, the South Bronx. South Bronx, the South Bronx. South Bronx, the South Bronx.
Let's take a look at the second type of sample, which is a musical instrument sample. Now let's listen to another original song followed by a song that has sampled it. Number 3 is referred to as unconventional or found sounds. Perhaps these samples can be taken from other songs. Often they're samples of things that can be taken from the environments around you. For example, I have a good friend who's an R&B singer who let me get access to her music prior to its release. And I was telling her how I loved the intro of the song because it sounded like she was like in the middle of the woods. And what she explained to me is that she did, in fact, take a recorder into the woods with her to capture the sounds. Unfortunately, I don't have permission to let you hear her song, but here's an example of a song that uses some unconventional sounds.
How you feeling?
I'm so bossy, get off me. It's a different jingle when you hear these car keys. Your SL's missing an S.
Moving on to our final type of sample, we have vocal sample. Take a second to read, and once you're done, we're gonna actually flip it. We're gonna listen to a song that has sampled numerous different vocals, so you get a sense of the different ways in which vocal samples can be used.
Ready or not, here I come, you can't hide. Gonna find you and take it slowly.
Ready or not, refugees taking over. The Buffalo Soldier, dreadlock roster on the 12th hour.
Buffalo soldier, dreadlock rasta. It was a buffalo soldier in the heart of America.
Now, as we saw in this example, a vocal sample can be re-sang or re-sung. It can be taken directly from a song and then reused. It can be sped up, slowed down, as can any type of sample. Depends on the creative process of the beat maker, the producer. Now you might be asking yourself, where can I find this information? I have a ton of songs that I'm interested in to find out whether or not they have been sampled or they've used samples. Well, if you've been in this long enough, you can start to pick up on these things. But nobody's perfect, right? Depends on the range of your music library and your knowledge of music. There's an easy way to find this though. Whosampled.com is basically like a Wikipedia of samples in that it is sourced by regular individuals, regular humans like myself, like you. You can go to the website, and if you're aware of a song that has been sampled or a song that has used a sample or samples, you can go in and submit a claim to say, I think this was sampled or this sampled something. On this slide, we can see kind of some of the information you can get on the site. I'm not gonna go through this whole thing, but take a minute to see exactly what's happening. We're already almost done with the day, but before we go, I wanted to show you some important information that's worth noting about sampling. Sorry, I got excited. Before we put a cap on this session, I want to introduce you to another one of my favorite hip-hop documentaries, which is called Copyright Criminals. A very basic synopsis about this film is that it talks about the history of sampling in hip-hop and some of the challenges and issues that have come up during its history.
Say someone recorded this sound. So does that mean they own it if I go?
If you sample one note of a sound recording, it's copyright infringement.
It's actually taking sounds and meshing them together and putting them all in time to come up with something totally different.
By ignoring the rules, they came up with a whole new way of thinking about music.
Always buying records, searching. That bass line.
We grabbed conga sounds, trumpet sounds, violin sounds, drum beat sounds, and remanipulated and created our own music.
Basically, when I'm sampling, I have all these artists. They're in my band. You can't just have a record that's made up of everybody else's records and then not pay them for it.
You pay for a guitar, you pay for a piano, you pay for anything else that you make a song with.
At the end of the day, the court said, not only is this copyright infringement, but we see criminal prosecution in line for this one.
Some of those first sampling cases, De La Soul, Biz Markie, PE, and others, it wasn't that they were trying to be thieves or trying not to get caught. It was just like, we kind of didn't know.
Sampling was a very intricate thing for us. We was creating a collage.
We kind of looked at music as a assemblage of sounds, and we felt that you couldn't copyright a sound.
Here's a list of resources that will help guide you along the way if you choose to do a deeper dive in anything that we've learned over today's lesson. Thank y'all for being present, willing to listen and engage in today's lesson. I can't wait to join you for our next lesson where we're gonna really get into the nitty-gritty and write some bars.